So, hello and welcome to The New Journey, a show by SettleFast that inspires and empowers new Canadians through conversations, stories, and knowledge. I'm your host, Gurvinder. And in today's episode, we'll talk about startups, investing, Web3, building a business in Canada with Swish Goswami, CEO of Trufan, a TEDx speaker, an investor with many successes under his belt. And you have a sneaker deal as well with K-Swiss. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Awesome. First of all, congratulations on your recent success with Trufan and Surf as well. How did that come along? How do you view that success?
Yeah, it's amazing. I think the cool thing is that it's a success just in terms of an idea, in my opinion. Like what we're trying to do, obviously, is build an equitable data economy, build an economy where both consumers and brands can benefit from the data that's going back and forth. And it's a concept that I wish existed when social media even started, when these bigger companies like Facebook, when the e-commerce trend obviously kicked off with Amazon, all of these big tech companies, Facebook, Amazon, Google, they all take data from consumers. But in the last 15 years, we're yet to see any of them come out and say, we're going to compensate users directly. And so I feel like what we're doing now with Surf is refreshing. It's new. Hopefully it pushes some of these bigger companies down the road to make changes. And I think that's why, thus far, even just with the idea, it's pretty successful in my eyes.
Perfect. And for our audience, tell us about your journey, those initial days, your early days, doing the planning sessions, starting this business. How were those initial days? Because we want to go back into, the exploring your journey so that, from an outside, it looks fantastic and awesome. But I know you would have some sleepless nights or some crazy thoughts in your minds when you were starting up. So walk us through that journey as well.
Sure. No, I went to the University of Toronto wanting to be a lawyer because in high school, I had debated for the national team. I was student council president. I was very focused on public policy. And that was just a path that I saw ahead of me. And my brother is a lawyer right now, so I wanted to kind of follow in his footsteps. He's about 5 years older than me. And I think second year of university came around, I realized, okay, maybe law school is not for me. And I wanted to actually do something totally different. And I kind of looked back at my roots and, when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, I mean, a lot of what I did really was entrepreneurship, but on a very, very micro scale. I built a hovercraft when I was 10 years old. I had sold that, to one of my classmates. I had joined Junior Achievement when I was 14, which is a program that teaches young entrepreneurs about creating a business with other students and running it for 6 months. And so I felt like doing something around that would be interesting. I just didn't know where to start, which tends to be one of the main issues people have. They have an idea, but they don't know where to start. And so after my second year of college, I took a job at a venture capital firm called JB Fitzgerald in New York. And it was cool because in the process of being an analyst at that VC and directly dealing with companies and entrepreneurs, you kind of learn a little bit about, okay, what do these guys do? What do these guys do on a daily basis? How do they operate their businesses? How did they start? And that kind of gave me the confidence to go and start my own business, which I did in New York called Dunk. And so my roommate, Elliot, he had started this massive Instagram account for basketball fans. I was his roommate, and I decided to help him out on the business side with fundraising and also working with brands like Warner Music and Gatorade that promoted their content on our channels. We grew the overall media network to over 11 million followers on social media. The main account at Dunk on Instagram had about 2.4 million followers. And that taught me a lot about influencer marketing. It taught me a lot just about marketing in general, building a brand, building a community, which I did also for Surf, but I also did it for my own personal brand on LinkedIn, for example. And so I think that, 1.5 year experience working with Elliot on Dunk was invaluable. And when I started Trufan about 4 years ago, we initially just wanted to build a business that could help any brand find their top fans and reward them. And, 4 years later now, we're doing something that's way bigger. We're still helping brands analyze their audiences, understand their audiences, but we're also helping them generate first-party data, directly get opt-in data from consumers who can now finally be compensated for their data. So to kind of answer that question directly, 100%, I've had a ton of sleepless nights. I've had a lot of doubts in my head of whether dropping out of second year of college was the right move, whether not being a lawyer was the right move, whether putting my income and my career in jeopardy by building a business and not really knowing if it would succeed. That also led to a lot of anxiety and doubt. But I think at the end of the day, one of the things I've continued to stay true to is if you put in hard work, if you're patient, and if you surround yourself with the right people, you put yourself in the best situation to win. And that just tends to be true across the board. It definitely is true for myself.
Okay. And what were those initial challenges that you faced in the early days when you were starting up? Were there any specific challenges that you still remember and you were like, yo, oh wow, we overcame that challenge? Was there anything like that?
I think two professional, one personal. I think one of the professional challenges was definitely being taken seriously. You know, I was 20 years old when I started Trufan, and whether it was raising money or going to a big box brand and getting them to come on as a customer, you know, it definitely was a little bit weird being 20 and having to pitch. I mean, look, entrepreneurship, in my opinion, actually is leaning younger now than older. Like, I actually think it's more of an anomaly to be like a 60-year-old entrepreneur than a 22-year-old entrepreneur. But at the same time, I mean, there are obviously people out there who will judge you based on your age, who will, you know, think, oh, what does this person know? This person's too young. Go to school, learn something, come back in like 5 years. And we definitely encountered those people. The second professional challenge, I think, which is leadership, and management. Like, starting an idea is one thing, managing a team, hiring the right people, dealing with people in your team, motivating them is a totally different game. So though I was pretty good at starting ideas and working as part of a very small nuclear team, you know, now we're about over 40 people at Trufan. It's a totally different skill set that I had to learn over the last 4 years. And that's something that took a lot of trial and error. It took a lot of, you know, firing people, hearing a lot of shit from people, getting good and bad feedback to really learn, like, what was I good at? What was I not good at? Who do I need on my team to help me out? And then I think the personal challenge, honestly, is just more of like, you know, I didn't obviously, you know, go back to college. So my third and fourth year friends, for example, like I didn't disconnected from a lot of them. Wasn't able to really see them, obviously, because we actually started Trufan in Vancouver as well. We didn't start it in Toronto. And so there definitely was a bit of a sacrifice in terms of, you know, that college experience maybe that I wasn't able to fully get because of work. But again, you know, I see that, and then I also see some of the cool stuff I was able to do, you know, the case twists, the speaking around the world, blah, blah, blah. And I feel grateful, but it definitely was, you know, stuff that kind of weighed a bit on my mind to think, oh, like, these are relationships that I've kind of foregone now because I'm not going back to school. You know, will I regret it? That was sometimes always a thought in my head.
Okay. And during those challenges, what were the support systems that you banked upon? What did you fall back to, you know, if you were looking for advice or, you know, overcoming those challenges? Was there any mentor who really helped you, or was there any investor you were going with? Tell us something about that.
I mean, definitely a lot of investors have been mentors to me. You know, Michael Hyatt, for example, he's out of Toronto. He ran Blue Cat Networks before selling that, and now is an angel investor with a family office. And I met him in my second year of college. I, at that time, actually still wanted to be a lawyer, and he was kind of the one who encouraged me to think bigger. He told him a bunch of early ideas I had. He didn't like any of them, and then, you know, I told him Trufan. He's like, okay, this is maybe a good idea. And so he's been kind of an early advisor investor. Manny Pata out of Vancouver, you know, he's like an older brother to me. He's someone who connected me to pretty much everyone who came on our early round back in 2018. And he kind of just opened up his entire network to me, opened up all the knowledge that he has across starting multiple businesses and investing in so many companies too. So I really, really appreciate him. And then I think, again, you know, my mom and my brother, like, they're the people that ground me, you know, during the really high, amazing days. They're the ones that kind of bring me down, and during the really low days, they bring me up. So I think they're a really good stabilizing factor in my life.
Awesome. So I know you wear many hats, you know, being a founder, CEO, speaker, you know, you're a professional speaker as well. You're an investor, you're a brand ambassador. You know, which one of these is your favorite? Like, if you have to pick one, you know, you'll be like, you know, I'm going to do this, you know, 24/7. This is what I would like to do. Is there anything particular?
The gamer? No, I'm kidding. I think the entrepreneur. You know, I think the 99% of my week is really spent working with the team on Trufan and Surf. And so that is my favorite part of the week, in my opinion, is just working with our team, continuing to push forward on product, marketing, sales, whatever it is. The other stuff, you know, speaking, you know, writing a book, like social media, podcast, investing, advising, brand ambassador, whatever it is, all of those different hats, in my opinion, only came into my life because of entrepreneurship, because of the work that I had done on my business. I wouldn't be called to give a talk on entrepreneurship. I wouldn't be, listened to on social media if I hadn't also done some of those things. So I always think that the more I succeed within business, the more I will succeed across all those other areas. So kind of my nucleus, if you will, is Trufan and Surf.
Okay. And the reason why I asked this question is because in the tech world, we often hear this story that you have to focus on one thing at one time and then, move on to the other things. How do you navigate these different roles that you have? What kind of tools you use to navigate and manage these different roles?
I mean, I think in my first 2 years, I was very spread thin. Like it's also worth noting our team obviously was like under 10 people in our first 2 years. So there wasn't actually that much in terms of management. Obviously now, the fact that last year we, in 2021, at the start of 2021, we were at about, 16, 17 people, and we ended the year at over 40. Like there was a massive scale up there, and that just required a lot of my time as well, because there was just a lot of like uncharted territory that we had to navigate. So yeah, I mean, right now, like I think I'm the most focused I've ever been. Trufan as like a business is my number one priority across anything. But yeah, I mean, in the first 2 years, like while I was setting up the company, I was also speaking and setting up my speaking career. I was posting on social media a lot. I was writing a book that is finally coming out now in 6 months, which I'm really excited about. And I was doing all these other things. And honestly, the only way I was really able to manage it is by not getting a lot of sleep, sacrificing on a ton of just like, my health, working out, and doing stuff like that. Like that was the way I did it. I don't know if there's another way to do it. I bet there is that's more healthy, but the way I did it, honestly, isn't the most healthy in terms of how I balanced everything in my life, which is why now that I'm a lot more focused on one thing, I actually am also seeing a lot of like health benefits in terms of like sleeping better, eating better, working out, being happier, which has been great to see.
Awesome. And I know Trufan is in the space of customers' attention where, data is the most valuable thing for you. The recent trends or the buzz that is happening around Web3, I'm sure you have looked into that and all the craze that is happening around you. How do you view your role as a CEO when you look at these new techs coming up or, new spaces being, explored by others? And how do you prepare for that? What's your view on Web3 as a technology framework or as a landscape and environment, basically?
Yeah, I mean, I think Web3, the principles underlying it around, a fairer and more rewarding internet, a decentralized internet, and actually more importantly, an internet where people can have ownership over what they share and what they engage with. I mean, it's very similar to the principles of Trufan, and especially with our product Surf, right? Like, Surf is trying to allow people to take control of their data, have ownership over it. And the virtue of ownership means being able to also then sell it and share it and monetize it. So I think right now we're a little bit too early as a society, in my opinion, to go and create a tool that allows people to manage their data on a daily basis, like essentially broker your own data deal. Like I think people care about data, but they don't care about it as much to go and like every single day monitor, oh, here's my Facebook data, here's my Netflix data, here's my OpenSea data. Let me sell this, let me not sell this, let me manage this. Like that's not something I think people are really looking for right now. I think what people are looking for though is just an entry point. They're looking for an entry point to understand Web3. They're looking for an entry point to understand data ownership and privacy. And that's where I think what we built with Surf is great because it's entirely passive. People download the extension, they get rewarded for something they do on a daily basis. They don't have to watch ads, they don't have to take surveys, they don't have to change their browsing behavior in any way. And they get these points that allow them to understand that my data has value. And I think one of the things we're going to be announcing in a few months is we're looking to also see if we can provide people the ability to use their points for tokens. So not only can you use your points for items and gift cards and other stuff in the Web2 environment, but maybe you can also use your points to enter Web3 by being able to exchange your Surf points for a token of some kind. So we're looking to look at stuff like that. But again, I think there's just some steps that need to be taken before society moves into like a fully Web3 environment.
Okay, that's true. Yeah. And besides your own startup, you are involved in other startups as well in other roles like advisors or, strategic investors. How do you view that role and how challenging that has been as part of your, the life basically?
It's been good. I mean, it's not challenging in any way. I think it's actually pretty easy. Like, any sort of disposable income I have, I love to obviously invest in the stock market. I invest in crypto. I've been getting into even property recently, just looking at that. And I think, one of the things I tend to know the best out of any of those is tech, right? Like when I go and speak to a founder and they tell me about their company, I kind of latch on directly to two things. I latch on to the big problem that they're looking to solve, and I latch on to them as a person. And so all the companies that I put money into, whether it is the Face Clans, whether it is, Smile or Wombo, or even like a recent deal I did, it was called Kiwi Grocery that I'll be announcing in a month. All of these kind of companies all have a big problem that they're solving, but they also have some incredible operators who I want to work with as well and learn from. And so again, it's not a big responsibility. Whenever people need me, they call me or email me. I help out wherever I can, but it's not like, I'm involved in something that is taking up too much time for my main business.
Yeah. And we have heard, some stories about, investors who act as mentors or who spend a lot of time in other companies that they invest in. Is it mostly on your side as well, on a strategic side, or do you, help out the founders with, mentorship or, coaching them based on your experience as well?
Yeah, I mean, I tend to do that for definitely younger entrepreneurs. Like one of the companies that I got involved in is a share, which was initially trying to provide people, a income share agreement so they could pay down their student debt. And actually, they now pivoted and they're creating a corporate benefit plan for companies to go and pay down student debt for their employees a lot easier. So I really like that. It's a nice problem, obviously, given the fact that student debt is a big problem, not just in the US, but in Canada. And I feel like in Canada, it kind of is pushed under the rug a bit. But yeah, I mean, like with those guys, I mean, they are first-time founders. They're from university and they're young. They're around my age. And so I, remember last year in February and March, sat down with them, looked through their business plan, edited, came up with their logo, came up with their new name, introduced them to their first investors, advisors, went through their data room, went through their fundraising pitch and gave them advice. Like I was a little bit more operational in that role.
Yeah.
But again, I was also temporary. Right now they're flying, they're moved around, they're operating on all cylinders, and I don't need to do as much anymore. So that is something I'm very open to. Again, it really just depends like what time of the year it is, what other responsibilities I have. But I actually do like doing that because I find that, as an entrepreneur, one of the things I love more than what we're building is the ability to think of something new and just see it from the ground up take off. And that early part of like coming up with the idea, writing it down, thinking about it nonstop, figuring out what's wrong with it, getting feedback from early customers or friends, and then being able to put together the first website, the first logo, the name, all of that. That is really exciting to me. And so being able to kind of do that vicariously through entrepreneurs I fund or I'm a part of, I mean, it's an amazing process.
Yeah. And switching the conversation here, one of the biggest challenges that we see in the tech landscape is, the issues with raising funds or capital, So you have been on both sides of the table as a founder who is looking for investors and as an investor who is looking for startup opportunities. How do you view your role, compared to the other investors you have met or, who have invested in your companies? How does that role differ?
Yeah, I think, again, like you mentioned, I've raised money for Trufan over $5 million now to date. And I've also been on the other side where I've been an analyst at a VC. Then I obviously angel invest now. And I'm also an LP in a fund called Sweet Spot Capital out of New York. And I think my perspective is pretty clear, which is fundraising, I think just like honestly sales is a networking game. It really comes down to how bad do you want it and how far are you willing to go to get those conversations started. So you're going to have some people that are going to have 10 conversations, 2 of which might have come cold, but the other ones all warm intros. All of them reject them and they say, I'm done. I can't do this. This is stupid. And you have other people like me they'll go through 70 or 80 conversations. They'll get no's from everyone, but one fool, one idiot will say, let's do it. And we'll give that kid hope, and they'll keep going and they'll figure it out. They'll make the idea smart. They'll crush it. And so, that's my experience. Is I'm kind of relentless. I think you need to be super persistent. I will reach people through any channel. Like if I have to fly to an event to go and talk to someone who's speaking, I'll do it. If I need to LinkedIn message someone, if I need to create a podcast just to have conversations with people I want to have conversations with, I'll do it. Whatever it honestly takes to get in the door, I can do that. And then obviously past that, it comes down to what I've done, who I am. Those are the things that matter.
Yeah. That's amazing, So you mentioned about podcast and, the other channels, going to, meet somebody at a speaking engagement or all of that. And that shows the true, the persistent behavior or the relentlessness with which you pursue, your business as well. Yeah. I think that's a great advice for anybody who's listening and anybody who's interested in, raising money, is to never lose hope.
Yeah.
And just be consistent in their efforts to reach out to people who they are looking forward to, in terms of.
And I would preface that also by saying, like, even though we got maybe 70, 80 rejections, whatever it is also worth noting that we listened to these rejections. We got feedback from every person that rejected us. Some people gave feedback, some people didn't. Some people gave very vague feedback. Some people gave very specific feedback on why they said no. And so we took that in and we continued to adapt our pitch, adapt our deck, adapt our business model, adapt our vision, everything. We adapted across these conversations. And I think that's great because, like, again, Trufan started 4 years ago as a simple platform to help brands find their top fans on the internet. Going from there to, we are going to build an equitable data economy where brands can engage and understand their consumers and consumers can be compensated. That is an incredible leap in terms of thought, in terms of the problem we're going after and the solution we built. And the only way we've been able to get this far, in my opinion, is because of the feedback we've gotten from investors, from customers, and from our team. That's really what it comes down to. So not only being resilient and persistent, but also being receptive to feedback and being willing to kind of adjust and adapt to it. That's incredibly important as well.
That's amazing. And, SettleFast, the company that I founded, basically what we do is we empower and inspire new Canadians, newcomers, or anybody who's looking to come to Canada, find a meaningful way to either start a business or grow their careers, grow their professions. And one of the things that we do is to basically relate our stories through these conversations so that they can get some actionable insights.
Right.
So switching on that topic, Canada is a preferred destination for many founders, many entrepreneurs who are coming from all over the globe. Newcomers who want to start their business. They sometimes lack the network in Canada or the knowledge to, start up the business. What would you suggest to, those newcomers or young founders who want to raise funds, start and grow their business in Canada? What's your piece of advice for them?
I think two things. One, it's a lot easier to reach the top tier people here in Canada, right? Like I think number one, if you're taking a look at like celebrity investors in Canada, they don't tend to have as big of a following as celebrity investors in the United States. And I think more importantly, they also don't tend to have as big of an ego. So I find that in Canada, like the top cream of the crop, like best investors and entrepreneurs, they're so humble. They're very open to helping. They're open to conversations. And I think that's an amazing place to be. The second is, I think people here in Canada focus a little bit more on revenue, on traction than on vision, which is fine. I think it means that we will make less bets here in Canada, but we'll probably make better bets overall on average. And so I think that's just one thing to keep in mind is if you are, a person that's coming up with an idea, like if you really want to check from a VC, for example, you should try to do as much as you can, pretending like you never got money or you're never going to get money, right? Like hire out of pocket if you can. If you can't hire out of pocket, like give equity, show out equity to your early employees to get them into the door and motivate them to build an MVP, then sell the MVP, get 5 or 10 customers, and then go and raise, as opposed to raising with just a slide deck saying, well, we're going to hire a team and then we're going to get customers. And that's obviously a lot more risky for an investor, especially here in Canada.
Very true. Very true. Yeah. And in the Canadian tech landscape, what do you find most interesting right now? What's the most interesting things that are happening in the Canadian tech landscape? We have had a record year, in 2021, where we had an amazing number of unicorns been pushed out of the door. We had amazing number of deals happening. What's the most incredible thing that you think is happening in the tech landscape right now?
I think two things. I mean, one is the belief, like, holy crap, we can do it. Like, Canadian companies can stack up against American companies and do very well. I think Shopify was obviously such a great breakthrough example of that. And it's kind of ushered in this new generation of unicorns, like you mentioned, Clio, Clearco, like Trulu, all of these companies that have now reached unicorn status, and it's incredible to see. And it's also worth noting, like, so many of these people, like, they're so accessible, like I mentioned. They're very receptive to feedback. You can see them at TechTO, for example, at an event, and meet them and talk to them. So the type of community they're also looking to foster is incredible, like very tight-knit, and that kind of feeling of like, wow, this is our time, like this is our Canadian moment. I feel like that belief is definitely there. And then secondly, I mean, like, if you take a look at AI, for example, or ML projects, I think we actually, especially here in Toronto, we stack up incredibly well to the rest of the world. Like, some of the best AI projects are coming out of the Creative Destruction Lab. And you take a look at like some of the research that's also being done on university campuses. It's cutting edge, incredible. So I think that's another great thing. Like, the talent pool here is incredible. Hiring obviously is so much easier to do here than in the United States, especially in the Valley or New York, based on salary expectations, currency exchange. That's, I think, why so many of these bigger companies like Microsoft and Amazon also are coming up north now and setting up offices here, because they recognize that. So I think there's a host of benefits, but like I mentioned, the most important thing I'm noticing is that there's a kind of overarching feeling of like, this is our moment here in Canada, which is amazing to see.
Awesome. And what are you looking forward to in 2022, from your own, role as a CEO for Trufan and for other investments that you have done? What are you looking forward to in 2022?
Yeah, there's a lot coming up in 2022 for us. I mean, even in the first quarter, like the first 3 months of the year, we're going to be rebranding Trufan entirely to Surf. So Trufan is going to be called Surf for Brands. It's going to be like the enterprise division for Surf, but everything is going to fall under that brand name. We're going to be launching discount codes on Surf, so people will get value beyond even just points now. They'll get some of the hottest discount codes in their extension, very similar to Honey. We'll be launching giveaways on Surf as well, so people can use their points not just for an item or gift card, but they can use their points to enter giveaways. A ton of new brand partners are going to be coming on over the next 3 months, a lot of smaller direct-to-consumer and e-commerce companies. And then we are looking to obviously raise our next round starting in mid-Feb. And also hopefully before that, announce a partnership with a blockchain company around, being able to push potentially Surf down a Web3 path in the future. So there's a lot going on the Surf side. And then overall, like, past that investment side, I'm very excited about FaZe. They went public last year. Gaming is only caught on every single year to like a more exponential degree. And I think this year in particular will be a breakthrough year, just also with the metaverse and how people are interacting with games and how games are also becoming associated to the blockchain. I think there's so many interesting applications for that. Like, the ability, for example, for me to play Halo and then actually own the skin, own the gun, own the items that I get in the game and be able to sell it on a secondary market. That is something I wish I could have done 10 years ago. But like, now we're actually starting to see that it might become a possibility sooner rather than later. So I think, FaZe is definitely kind of up there in terms of like an investment that I'm very excited about seeing how they continue to move forward.
Awesome. And I think that brings us to the end of this conversation. I think it was a very enriching conversation I had. And lastly, any words of advice for founders or entrepreneurs who are in the tech space right now in Canada? What advice would you give to them?
I think reach out. I like don't like I think self-doubt is so prevalent among entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. You all like this kind of self-doubt is associated to imposter syndrome. This idea of like, am I really the right person to do this? Am I actually the smartest person in the room? Am I the person that's going to like build this company into what it needs to be in order to like, become ginormous? I don't think you should focus as much on that. I think, if there is an application for a job that you want to apply, if you don't think you're qualified, just apply anyways. If you're scared about making a post on LinkedIn because you're like, what are my friends going to think? I mean, as long as you're not saying something offensive, post it, see what happens, share it, share your voice, share what you think. And same thing also with reaching out to people. If you have a project, an idea that you want to pitch, obviously put yourself in the best situation to have that pitch go well, i.e. like do some work before even pitching, like practice the pitch, try to see how much traction you can get without money, try to see if you can bring on people without money. But beyond that, when you go and reach out to people, don't be scared. Don't think, oh my God, this person's a big shot. What am I going to say? Am I going to freak out? Are they actually going to respond to me? Send the message, whether it's over LinkedIn, whether it's over Instagram, whether it's going to an event and reaching out and asking questions to that person. Don't self-doubt. Just I think put yourself out there, and if there is something you want, especially this year more than ever, try to go and take it.
Awesome. I think this is one critical piece that you mentioned. The self-doubt. I think this pushes people back and pulls them, in the back, and they are not able to share what they truly want to share. And I think I've seen that myself as well. The imposter syndrome. I fully relate with that. It's the self-doubt in your mind, whether, am I the best one to do this? Am I doing good enough? And that. So thanks for sharing that. This has been a wonderful conversation, Swish. Wish you all the best for 2022. And thank you for this great conversation. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And for our listeners, thank you for everyone who tuned in this conversation. Please subscribe to The New Journey for more such conversation and story, and we'll be back together for another story, another journey. Wish you all the best for 2022, Swish. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.